Hi there. So my name's Callum Williams, and I'm here with Miha from Fiverr, which is a kind of very interesting platform that where people can come and sell their skills and their wares online. And we're going to be talking about the gig economy or the on-demand economy. It's got a lot of different names, and I've got a kind of bunch of questions for Miha that I'm very interested to hear his views on. So Miha, welcome to the conference.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
So my first question really is a kind of question about economics. There's a lot of hyperbole written about the gig economy, and sometimes you see, estimates that by 2030, 60% of the American workforce is going to be a gig worker. But then you look at, the official data, for instance, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the US, and their estimate of app-based employment is like 1%. So it's really small. So do you have a sense of kind of how to reconcile those two things? Like, kind of how big really is gig work in your view?
Yeah. So I think the probably the first point is to try and classify what gig work actually means. And I think there's a little bit of a broad misuse of the term gig economy to describe many things that have very little to do with each other.
Yeah.
I think when we look at our market is actually not really gig workers. It's more independent workers. These are people that used to freelance, but mostly offline, and are now migrating to online
Mm.
platforms. And so I think that if those, I'm not sure about the methodology of those of the research, but I think that if they've looked at only those who are classified as like the classical gig workers, people that might, drive for Uber or Lyft, then that audience could be smaller than the numbers that are being discussed. But if you look at independent workers, then these numbers are much larger than that. Fiverr operates in slightly more than 500 different categories that covers many creative areas, from graphic design to content marketing to software development and so forth. This market on the freelancing side is huge, and it's just getting bigger. I'm not sure if it's 60% or if it's going to be 40%. I've experienced that growth throughout the life of the company. We started in the very early 2010, so it has been almost 11 years, and I've seen that growth. I've sensed that growth
Yeah.
pretty massively. And actually, when we look at the market and we ask ourselves who's our competitor, we look at the offline market, because it's almost like e-commerce 20 years ago. Everything is offline, it's commerce, and then it starts migrating. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. So I can't refer to any methodology, but
Got
from
it.
from our perspective, the market is much larger.
I think what people kind of can agree on, certainly since the pandemic, is that there seems to be more demand from companies for independent workers. Now, the question I have for you is: do you see this as a kind of cyclical thing? We're in a downturn. Companies are trying to save on costs, so it kind of makes sense to use independent workers. Or do you see it as more of a secular, structural thing? Are we kind of at a tipping point where demand for independent workers is going to be permanently higher than it was?
I think it's the latter, and I think if anything, the pandemic just accelerated that process that we've seen naturally happening. So if I take the perspective of starting the company in the previous decade, I think the previous decade, the 2010s, have been around. Have been all about freelancing becoming mainstream. When 20 years ago, when someone said that they were freelancing, people treat that as something you do in between jobs. And I think that this
Yeah.
is no longer the case. This is people are opting in to freelance as a career path and as a lifestyle decision. This is how they
Mm.
want to run their time. If that is the case, if more, and this is even more true for the younger generation, the millennials. And so if you have more talented people that are opting to do freelancing as a career choice, It means that businesses would have to figure out how to integrate those talented people into their workflows because
Right.
these people do not want to be full-time hired. So we've seen that trend happening at the second half of the previous decade. And we think that the 2020s are going to be exactly about that. It happened to be that the pandemic hit just at the beginning of that decade. And what it did is it fast forward everything. But it also demonstrated for many businesses the virtues of working with remote workforce.
Yeah.
The fact that it is possible. It doesn't reduce your efficiency. It it has some challenges of how to do this integration, which is exactly what we're doing right now. We're trying to crack this up to understand how to solve that integration. But I definitely think that this is going to be the future, and the pandemic was just a demonstration that this is possible. So it accelerated, it fast forward everything.
Yeah. So my next question, I guess, is about that topic of integration that you mentioned towards the end of your previous answer. I mean, as you know, there's kind of very strong, long-standing economic evidence as to why firms exist. They exist because of things to do with culture and transactions cost and all that sort of stuff. And the evidence there is pretty robust. But of course, one of the propositions that you guys are making is that as a firm, you can just as efficiently take in someone from outside the organization and get them to do the kind of work you need. Now, at first glance, that seems to fly in the face of kind of all that evidence I referred to. So, what can platforms like Fiverr do to make that kind of I guess you could call it onboarding or integration as seamless and as efficient as possible?
Absolutely. I'll maybe start by saying that the cultural aspect is really important, and because of that, we realized very early on into developing Fiverr many years ago that there's something very interesting from a cultural standpoint about the lifestyle of being a freelancer, which there's many benefits, but there's also disadvantage in the sense of that they don't enjoy the benefits of an office where you have you have people around you on a cultural level, and you engage in knowledge transfer, which is really important. And what we've done is really we've put all these building blocks into our platform, meaning we had this huge advantage of having a massive audience of like-minded people that can actually have a conversation. They can actually empower each other, some with more experience than others, some facing challenges for the first time, and there's people to talk to. So the first thing is, as a platform, we're trying to connect people, and I think that this is working really well. So that is the first aspect. The other aspect is solving this sense of, great, so now I work with a customer. How do I get integrated into that customer? And it starts from very basic things, like the understanding of the culture of the customer, understanding how they perceive their brand, understand what their values are, and sharing those with freelancers. Then it goes to communication and collaboration. How do you make sure that they get interconnected? I said integration of freelancers into the business workflows, whatever they are. It might be chatting on Slack, it might be email, and it might be Zoom. All of that is baked into our platform to make that seamless, to ensure that they don't need to figure out how to deal with all those tools. It fully integrates with the way businesses like to hire, and then creating the infrastructure that allows businesses to continue working with freelancers on projects from time to time that they already like and have experience with. So you start getting experience, you create intimacy with the business and the understanding of what they stand for. And we've seen that extremely, being demonstrated extremely successful on our platform.
Just to go a bit deeper on that question, I find what you say kind of very interesting and very convincing. I'd be interested in your views, though, on the kind of slightly more theoretical question, I guess, which is where is the threshold between being able to employ someone as an independent worker, such as on your platform, and not being able to do that? So I think it might strike most people as odd, the idea of maybe hiring someone on an independent worker platform that was the head of human resources. That just seems very odd. So like,
Yeah.
where's the threshold between okay and not
Unless
okay?
your entire organization is remote, and in that case, you can
I
hire
mean, yeah,
a chief.
maybe.
So here's how I see it, and I think that more and more businesses are going to adopt this. I think that what's going to happen is that businesses are going to hire full time mostly around their core competencies, whatever they are, and they differ between businesses. And then on the more peripheral areas, even if they hire a team, working with independent freelancers gives them the opportunity to scale up and down very flexibly. So
Yeah.
let's say you have your core marketing team working and they need to launch a new campaign. So they go to the graphic design team and ask for a design, and these guys say, no problem, we're going to do this, but this is going to take 2-3 weeks. So they can wait, or they can just use someone flexibly to deal with that project. So I think we're going to see some hybrid ways of doing it, but basically I think the core competency of every company, and that might be your software, or that might be your marketing ways, or whatever it is probably going to stay full
Right.
time, and these are going to be long time hires, and then you can scale up or down using flexible work.
That makes sense. The final topic that I would be interested in asking you about is the kind of question of employment stability and workers' rights and that sort of thing. A lot of people worry about the rise of the gig economy because they see it as a kind of return to a sort of Dickensian model of employment where people can only take what they're able to kill in effect. What is Fiverr doing to kind of respond to that and improve workers' experience and their rights?
I understand where this is coming from, and again, this goes back to our discussion about the gig economy as a term, as a classification. And I think that a lot of sectors within the gig economy are a race to the bottom, and I see this, and this is pretty troubling. I think that what happened with Fiverr is that it's exactly the opposite. If you look at the way the platform works, more people are making more money every year. On Fiverr, freelancers get to set their own terms. And for us, the first thing that is the most important is to understand their motivation. Not everyone who's engaging with, by freelancing wants this to be their full time thing. Some of them have a 9 to 5 job, and for them, this is just a sidekick to make additional income. So first, it's important to understand how much capacity they have and how much of it they want to actually use. Some people want to make it a full-time thing, and over time what you see is you see an individual that starts working, is doing a lot of work, is growing extremely nicely, and then they start creating agencies, small agencies of people that can work with them to deal with higher load. So the reality is that Fiverr is a race to the top, and the way we do it is it's very much reputation based. So basically, the more high reputation you gain on the platform, the more work you get. If there's more demand for your services, you can charge more for them. It's supply and demand 101.
Yeah.
Right? So the reality is that this is the case. What we're trying to do is we're trying to cater to their motivations. If they want to grow, we want to be able to allow them to grow, and since they have the freedom of offering whatever they want, work whenever they want, charge however they want, like they have total freedom over that. And I think that has been a very positive force within this very large umbrella of the gig economy.
Well, we are fresh out of time, but Miha Kaufman, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. It was very interesting.
Thank you so much.